you get the rest of the day off, Dave? Then it's so nice down there in Columbus. You just, put this in on Zoom, then you can head out and take it easy the rest of the day, or?
I only wish. One of these days, I'll understand what the word vacation means.
There you go. All right, I think we're up to about 33, 34 people, so we'll go ahead and get going here. We don't want to hold everybody up. We know, I keep saying this is like week 200 as we get going with the virtual program. This does bring us to the conclusion of the virtual program today of what we have scheduled currently. We are looking to extend the program moving forward. However, we'll probably take a week or two off. So just watch your emails and watch your district directors and stuff, and Howard will get something pumped out from the office. But we'll go ahead and get.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and get stuff figured out, and we'll get a couple more sessions in. We still have the 501c3 session that we'd like to schedule. Union County went through an IRS audit this year. They're interested in sharing that information as well. However, they just can't do it when tax season. So we got to get tax season behind them. And we've had a couple other topics too that came up. We're looking at maybe a constitutional review topic, things that we can do as we move forward. Also, each week as we join together, we keep thinking we're going to have the plan set up from the governor. We're going to have some direction. We still don't have that. I can tell you there's more things in action today. We'll hopefully know more, but at this point we don't. So at some point when we get that plan put together, we'll want to get together and help everybody develop their plan that they're going to have to get put in place with their health department to get things moving forward. But that being said, that's where we're at. Like Howard mentioned before, these are recorded. They're on our YouTube channel. They'll be posted tomorrow. I believe we didn't get last week's on, correct, Howard? We're still having a little trouble getting last week's up. I think.
That's correct. The file is corrupt, so we're going back after another file.
Right. So I'll have to work on that one. So if you haven't seen last week's, that's why. But that's where we're at on that part. This morning, we're I guess I should say blessed because we've got somebody in the ride division and the fair division down in Columbus joining us today. It's Mr. David Miran. He's got a crew of people on here. You see some familiar faces with Ron Dean on here as well this morning, but he's going to introduce his crew. David's been very helpful. Just recently, I guess this isn't a new position for him, but it's kind of new to us as we've been working with him here since the first of the year. It's been very refreshing to have someone in the office down there that's willing to embrace this department and treat it with the respect that it deserves. And you guys all are going to enjoy, I think, working with him as we move forward in the future. He's been very promising and very supportive of everything we've been doing. And we appreciate him taking the time to be here with us today. Our sponsors today are Greater Ohio Showmans and Let's Go Amusements. Remember to thank those folks. That's very important to us as we get things moving forward. As you know, sponsors are always important. So with that being said, David, I'd turn it over to you and go forward with your program this morning. And I think you'll get a lot out of this. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Like you said, my name's Dave Myron. I'm the chief of the Division of Amusement Ride Safety. I've been with the department now for over 7 years. So for those of you who don't know me, this is put a face to the name. So I took over from took the division over about November of 2020. So it's been a fast 4 months. I can definitely say that. So what I really like to do today is just kind of give a general overview of what's going on with the division and the Office of Affairs right now, where we stand for some fiscal situations, as well as goals for the future, as well as just a general update about amusement rides. With me today, we have Ron Dean. Many of you probably know Ron. He's one of the most experienced inspectors that we have in the amusement ride safety program. Also have Katie Boyer from our communications office. She's handling the PowerPoint today. And I don't know if anybody else is, but those are the two stars of the show today. A little bit more about myself. Like I said, I've been with the department for 7 years. Most of the time I've been with the legal office, representing almost every division that the department has during that time. Took over and established the hemp program, which is a new program that the department has in September of 2019. I still manage that program in addition to the rides and fairs. So it's a great variety. I grew up in upstate Western New York. My parents sell hot dogs on the street and during fairs and festivals. So I'm definitely familiar with the fair and festival scene and can understand the work and the traditions and the dedications that go along with that. So I'm really excited to be a part of the program and just kind of entering the next chapter. So if you ever guys need anything from me, you'll have my contact information at the end, but please feel free to reach out. What you see in front of you right now is the mission of the Department of Agriculture. I always like to start any presentation off by reminding everybody that the department's mission is to protect Ohio citizens, whether that be through ensuring that the livestock that's being raised here in the state are free of any dangerous and contagious diseases, that the food that's being manufactured in the state is being done so in a safe and sanitary environment. And I say that because that's the exact same thing that we do at the Amusement Ride Safety Program, right? We inspect every ride that's operating in this state to ensure that it's being operated and maintained with national standards. We want to ensure the safety of every rider and operator in the state, and that's exactly what we do on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's really important just to lead off with that. Want to talk about a lot of fiscal situations that's going on with the fairs right now. So I'm going to break down a lot of things, a lot of different programs and funds, just so that we ensure that everyone's on the same page here. So capital appropriations, Senate Bill 310 appropriated about $4 million for certain ag societies. Those societies are listed on the right side of the page. All contracts have been executed by the ag societies themselves. We expect that the funds will be dispersed by the beginning of May. What's really the holdup right now is we're determining whether or not these funds have to go through the controlling board. If they have to go through the controlling board, it'll be closer to that May date. If we don't have to go through controlling board, you'll get those funds a lot sooner. So I just wanted to give everyone an update on that front. The Ag Society's facility grant, capital grant program, every fair received a contract for $50,000 in capital projects. The contracts allocate 12 months in order to complete the project. There are a number of fairs right now who have not completed receipts and provided documentation. That's fine. You still have the 12 months to complete the contract. What we're going to do as a department is reach out to those fairs to remind them of what you're supposed to do in these situations in order so that you can receive those $50,000. If those contracts expire on June 30th of 2021, so if we are unable to get receipts and documentation by that date, we're going to need to amend the contract to extend it to give you guys a little bit more time to finish those projects and to get those receipts and documentation in hand. Feel free, and we'll, like I said before, we'll reach out to you on that front. So if you're one of those fairs, you'll be getting an email on that front here within a week or so. CARES funds. So all fairs have received either $15,000 or $50,000 of CARES money. The original guidance on that was that the funds were supposed to be spent by the end of 2020. However, the Biden administration permitted spending to happen into the 2021 year. And so fairs with unspent funds are required to report that information to ODA by April 1st of 2021. We'll be providing more documentation on that. There is the list of fairs that are still outstanding are on this slide. So we'll be, again, reaching out to these fairs in particular just to kind of walk them through the process. We'll help in any way, shape, or form to make sure that you're doing your reporting correctly. Harness racing and junior fair premiums. So these fairs, with regard to, let's start with harness racing first. Obviously, as you're all aware, the harness racing funds are calculated off of the amount of money that's wagered at harness racing tracks and just horse tracks across the state. As you're all very much aware, the horse tracks were closed for a significant period of time in 2020. What that means for us is that the amount of money in that pot is a lot smaller than it used to be. That's why you see the funds that are normally closer to that $8,000 range, $8,000, $9,000 range. They're about $5,600 this year. We obviously hope and expect that those numbers are back to the traditional level next year, but we're only allowed to allocate funds on an annual basis. So fairs with racing will receive about $5,600 this year. Those funds have either already been dispersed or will be dispersed in the March 15th, March 22nd deadline. They are they're working their way out. So I just saw a comment. Yes, we received ours late yesterday, which is excellent. And so that's the harness racing funds. The junior fair premiums, all fairs will receive about $4,000 and change up to $4,000 and change in reimbursement for their junior fair premiums. Those are on approximately the same timeline in terms of disbursement. We did get a lot of questions recently about coding. We're going to send out an email today with this information, but sneak preview on the coding. We got questions on this. This is the coding that you're supposed to put in for the harness racing funds. Again, we will be sending this out via email, but since we got it yesterday and we received word that some fairs did receive funding, we felt it was appropriate to put it in today. Some fiscal reminders. I know we get questions all the time on this. Ohio Shared Services won't actually allow ODA to update anyone's information. So to ensure that you guys receive your funds timely, be sure to give Ohio Shared Services a call. The number is listed here. There is not a specific person to reach out to. There's not a specific fair, ag society contact. So by calling that number, you may have to work through some prompts, unfortunately, but that's the best resource that we have for you at this time. But we can't stress enough that if you guys want to make sure, we do a lot of digging in, like, hey, OBM doesn't have the right information for X county. So it requires us to do a lot of legwork on that front. It saves everybody a lot of time if you just give Ohio Shared Services a call annually, I would say, just to make sure that you have the right information on that front. IRS 990s is another topic that comes up every year. As a general reminder, all county and independent fairs are required to file their IRS 990 annually. This is regardless of whether or not you are under our blanket or your own exemption, and there's some serious consequences if you fail to file that IRS 990. So it's just a general, please do the paperwork that you do every year. We'd be happy to assist in sending a letter in support if you wish to obtain your own exemption, which we highly recommend. So if you have questions on that front or are interested in exploring that, give us a call. That's a general theme, right? Is please call us. That's what we're here for. We'll provide as much assistance as we can, but we can't help with a situation that we don't know about. General legislative update, House Bill 665. You guys have probably talked about it at length, but as a general reminder, that bill modernized the laws and regulations surrounding county and independent ag societies. Two quick highlights: increase the max funding from $800 to $1,600 in county treasurer dollars, and streamlined annual financial reports. So what does that mean here? It means that ODA and OFMA leadership are working to incorporate those 665 changes into our administrative code. At that same time, it gives us an opportunity to modernize the rules that are not impacted by 665. That's really one of the goals that we have for the department, is modernizing the fairs office. It's just really, really important. I say it all the time. It's 2021. Let's take advantage of the technology that we have to make our lives easier and to make your lives easier. So that is what I think is the future of the fairs office. Is we want to make reporting streamlined and centralized. We want to simplify and reduce the number of forms that you guys have to submit and we have to review. And frankly, we're going to look to establish a system where you can upload documents. You'll know that they're in there, and you'll know you can just simply go to the system and see that we've approved it. Now that's a big ask, right? That's IT projects. IT projects take time. So this is simply not going to happen overnight, and it's probably not going to happen by this fair season. But just know that we are looking to go into the 21st century and make this so much easier for everybody. Knowing where the documents are at any point in time, I think, is one of the number one emails, for example, that our office gets is, X county. I'll just say Franklin County because that's the county I'm in. Franklin County sends an email. Hey, did you get this? Then we respond, yes, we got it. Or we have to look to verify. And being able to just know that information instantaneously, it's going to save everybody a lot of time and, frankly, a lot of worry on that front. The second goal for the office is to establish additional training opportunities. I think that what you guys have been doing recently is an excellent idea, and it's something that we need to leverage in the future. Is instead of just having one meeting over the course, the OFMA convention, which is great, brings us all together, and frankly, those hallway conversations are equally, if not more important than the actual meetings itself, right? That's where a lot of stuff gets done. But having this monthly or however it is, virtual meetings that are recorded and can stand the test of time on YouTube or wherever provides an instant resource for everybody. It's like, hey, didn't we talk about this in that IRS meeting that we had? You can go back to that and you can instantly learn. So that's something that we want to do as a department, is to provide training and resources on the most common questions that we get as a department, elections questions, reporting questions. And so with that being said, it's only useful, the training resources are only useful to everyone if they actually hit on the topics that people want to discuss. So on that note, that's something that I'm going to ask you guys in the fairs is, what kind of resources do you want us to put forward? Do you want new director training? Do you want election training? Where do you want us to spend our resources so that it can help you? So if you have thoughts on that front, either we can talk about them today or we can talk about them in the future. So, but that's really, we're here to help you mentality that we're trying to instill. And so I look forward to talking about that more in the future. Moving to the other side of the coin, the amusement right safety. I'm going to kick it over to Ron really quickly after this, but I wanted to provide a quick division update about what's happening. So as you guys are very well aware, we had 12 inspectors at one point. The number of inspectors dropped from 12 to 2. As of on March 22nd, so in a couple of weeks, we will be back up to we will be back up to 8 inspectors, bringing back 2 inspectors on March 15th and 2 inspectors on March 22nd. So we will be back up to a contingent of 8 inspectors, gearing up, to open the big parks and get ready for fairs and festival season, however that's going to look. So we're excited about the future. We're excited that it's, spring is eternal, that we're going to get back to normal at some point in time. And we wanted to make sure that we had enough staff and resources available so that we could get your rides ready, inspected, and do what we need to do. So with that being said, I'm going to kick it over to Ron Dean, who I said is one of the most experienced inspectors that we have on staff. He's probably a familiar face to all, but I'll let Ron take it from here.
All right, good morning, everybody. Just a quick little insight. I know a lot of you folks already know who we are, what we do, but I just like to constantly remind everybody of a few things. So we license and inspect, obviously, all amusement devices throughout the state of Ohio. And that's everything from a portable ride that's probably at a fair, rock walls, inflatables, to large amusement facilities. Ohio has a lot to offer in the amusement side of stuff. A few of the requirements in order to obtain a license is all companies must be registered with us. Dave talked about some of the technology advances. We've most recently gone, I'm going to call it 90% digital, which is nice. It makes everything instant for us as the inspectors. It's real time, even relaying documents to other ride companies or committees. It's pretty much real time. So it's been a significant help. As far as the company registers, once they register with us, they're required to submit itineraries to us. That tells us where the rides are going to be set up and located at. We utilize that for scheduling purposes, so we can staff accordingly. This kind of coincides a lot with what the fair schedule is. Now, ultimately, we do know when fairs are going to be scheduled. That's kind of a predetermined. But depending on the scale of the fair, how many rides are going to actually be at that fair, sometimes we are doing the inspections maybe a day or two before the fair actually opens. So that's a requirement for them to submit to us, but that's just something that we use for staffing and scheduling purposes. As far as the inspection process goes itself, we physically look at, touch as much as these rides as possibly can. We go through all the apparatuses, the restraints, the passenger carrying devices. Once all that stuff's satisfied, we'll go through operational checks, checking safety systems, start, stop buttons, anything involved with the operation of that ride. Once everything is in compliance and we're satisfied with that, then a permit is issued to it, and it's able to operate anywhere within the state of Ohio, providing, again, that they submit those itineraries. That way we can follow up with them if we need to. As far as some new stuff that came about recently, if nobody is aware of it, House Bill 189, which is probably going to hear referred to more as Tyler's Law. That went into effect and has made a few additions as to our inspection process and also what is going to be required of the ride companies. A couple key points on this House bill. All ride companies, ride owners are not going to be required to submit to our office in writing anywhere that the ride has been stored for more than 30 days or if it's been operated out of state. So some of these portable companies that may leave the state, go down to Florida, warmer climates, they're going to be required to tell us where those rides were not only operated at, but the times that they were operating. This isn't going to, a lot of this stuff is really more of another tool as far as I'm concerned. It's going to let us know where the ride has obviously been, has it been maintained properly. And these are all documents that we can ask for more information on if we feel we need to during our inspection process. Another part of this bill also broke down the classification of rides, and this is different than our licensing and fee structure of classifications. This determines how many minimum inspections are going to be required on a certain ride. So for example, low intensity rides. So these are rides primarily what we'd consider a kiddie ride or a ride that is used primarily by children. These are low intensity rides. Those are required to have a minimum of one inspection. Obviously, they have to have initial inspection in order to operate. So technically that initial inspection would satisfy this. Now, as everybody knows, most of the time we are out at multiple fairs, so there's a good chance we're looking at these rides multiple times anyhow. But that's just one of the breakdowns for the classifications. As far as any other rides, there's an intermediate classification. The intermediate rides are obviously anything other than a kiddie ride. These are probably the more advanced rides, family rides, adult type attractions that probably spin, rotate, have a lot more functions as far as the operation of them. The intermediate rides are going to require 2 inspections, minimum. And it's also going to require that 2 inspectors be involved during the inspection process. Now, some of these rides, we are able to, a single inspector is able to do an inspection adequately. This is just putting another set of eyes on there. We've said it before, we're just another set of eyes for everything we do. So adding another inspector is just adding another set of eyes during the inspection process. Tower rides. So we get into some of the bigger rides, parks, even some of the portable stuff. We have some pretty big stuff we're seeing these days. So tower rides are anything that is, the main body is over 20 feet tall. Same as the intermediate, those are required to have a minimum of 2 inspections and a minimum of 2 inspectors. And again, it's just another set of eyes. We run into rides that have a lot of different heights involved in it. Generally, when we have rides that exceed any type of an elevation, we generally want 2 guys on there anyhow. So a lot of this stuff is things that we've already done. So it's kind of business as usual. And then there's a roller coaster. Roller coasters obviously are quite large in the state of Ohio. So roller coasters also minimum of 2 inspections and minimum of 2 inspectors. And primarily, we always have more than 2 inspectors on the larger roller coasters. The amount of inspections that's done, that's a little bit different. So some of this is going to be a bit of a scheduling nightmare for Dave, if you will. We are going to be doing a lot more inspections, or required to do a lot more inspections than we have in the past. But that's another component of Tyler's Law that was introduced. As far as any of the ride company responsibilities, nothing's really changed on that end. They are required to obviously obtain insurance, maintain that in our office. A lot of folks ask what happens to the rides, who's looking at the rides after we do our inspections. So ride companies are required to still do a pre-opening inspection. That's outside of any inspections we may do, even if it is on the same day. They're still required to do their own pre-opening inspections. This is a little feedback there. So this is before any ride opens to the guests or the general public. If there's any questions or concerns, we always tell the fair boards to feel free to ask to see those documents, just so you have a better feeling that they are doing what they need to, and that if somebody is looking at the rides before they operate. Same thing goes for operator training. If you have operational concerns or issues or questions, they are also required to have operator training documents. So every person that is at a ride, whether it's actually pushing the control button or they're just loading or unloading, they're an operator, an attendant, they're involved with the operation of that ride, and they should be trained and signed off as to what their qualifications are. None of that has changed. That's something that's always been in place, but we always want to put that out there to fair boards and anybody that has questions when we're not there. These are items that are required by the ride companies to maintain on a daily basis. As far as accident reporting, obviously our goal is to eliminate and avoid accidents, but when they do occur, we want to respond to them as quickly as possible and efficiently as possible. An accident, by our definition, is an injury on an amusement ride that requires immediate hospitalization. This has always become a little bit of a gray area because once a person leaves the grounds, or if they're transported, a lot of times it's hard to get information as to what their condition truly is. HIPAA laws have a lot of that protection. So we always encourage fair boards, ride companies to really work together on this aspect of it. From the fair board side, it's ultimately the ride company's responsibility to report this to us. But we know a lot of times you guys are using local fire, EMS, and a lot of times just that working in sync can give everybody a better idea of how severe the injury may or may not have been. That way it can be reported to us, and then we can make a determination as to whether or not we need to shut the attraction down, do a follow-up inspection, investigation, whatever it may turn into. So again, just going back to the accident side of the stuff, again, encouraging the fairs, the ride companies to work together. I know we put this out a few years back in Lake County, and speaking with the fire chief up there, and it was really kind of an eye opener for them when it comes to the amusement rides, just because they know how to save people from cars, buildings, and stuff. And once they thought about it, they didn't know a lot about the amusement rides. So again, just incorporating that, working together on the emergency evacuation accident side of stuff, very important. Last other item that we are still doing, no changes. We do also license the games at the fairs. There was no changes. I think a couple of years back was the last significant changes that we had as far as games, cleaning up some of the language. I think probably one of the biggest changes was just the consistency and the signage that's allowed. Again, no changes going forward. So any signage, when we come up to the game to review it, signage, 2x2 sign, minimum 1-inch lettering. These signs all have to be professionally made. So we're trying to get away from just tearing off a piece of cardboard and scribbling what the gameplay is. Excuse me. This just eliminates the possibility of changing the game play after we leave and issue the license to it. Again, no significant changes in the gameplay of stuff, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time getting into a lot of the specific games. I can tell you over the last couple of years, though, we have seen some changes as far as the types of games that are coming out. So just a reminder, we do have specific games that are listed in the rule book right now. What we have seen is a lot of variations coming out, just trying to make something old new again, which is fine. That's kind of a case-by-case scenario. But if it's too new of a game and it doesn't fall under any of the parameters of gameplay and what's allowed, it's going to be considered a new game, at which point us during the middle of the season would not be able to license that game. So any new game ideas, I know it's been a little bit since we've seen a lot of folks. I don't know what's new out there personally myself, but if there is a new game play or new game element that is not specifically listed in this rule book, that needs to be presented to our office. And I want to say it was before the end of April, at which point the gameplay needs to be submitted to our office. Generally, we would ask for some type of a demonstration to determine whether or not it is a viable game to be played fairly at any kind of fairs. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know a lot of it is very redundant for a lot of folks, but it's important stuff to get out there from the ride safety side of stuff. And then that's it.
Thanks, Ron. This is our contact information with regard to either the rides or the fair's office, as well as my personal email address at work. Like I said before, please reach out to us. That's what we're here for, is to answer any questions that you have that we're obviously able to answer. We really want to continue to build a great relationship between ODA, OFMA, and all of the fairs. So we can't solve a problem that we don't know about. So if you got to communicate with us so that we can help you out in any way, shape, or form. So we'd also much rather that you come to us with a problem than come to with a problem that hasn't happened yet, than a problem that already has happened and we got to pick up the pieces. So please call us in advance. I say it all the time. It's a lot easier to ask for permission than beg for forgiveness. So please give us a call if you have any questions on any front like that. Paul, Howard, you guys have any questions for us? Anything that you want us to cover real quick as well?
I just want to thank you again for taking the time this morning to join us, and Ron as well. It's obviously a familiar face, ride safety, and we know we're in good hands with you, and we always have been. So we certainly appreciate you taking the time to join us. I guess we'd open it up to anybody that has any questions. I would just preface that as you're getting off your mute button, and if you want to ask a question of these guys, go ahead. And then I would preface it that I hope you understand what I meant when I started this, that it's very refreshing for us to have somebody like Dave in this office down there who's willing to embrace some changes and moving forward. I think it's been the better part of 10 or 12 years now with my involvement in OFMA board that I've said, why are we doing this like this? We've continually questioned moving some of this reporting and paperwork into the next century. And I think he's embraced that. And obviously with those Red Book changes as well as moving forward, that's something that a lot of officers ahead of me started and never got anywhere on. We started this about, I think Amanda's on the call today too, 3.5 years ago. And ironically, we sat down with Dave and Mike Vardarella. Dave was Mike's go-to guy then in the legal department to sit down and start this process. So we're back in good hands with him here in this position to get that done. So Howard, if you've got anything, but otherwise we go ahead and open it up to some questions. I know our president's on here today too, Mr. Arter. He might have a couple comments to say, but by all means, folks, if you got some questions of these guys, let's get on here and get them answered. So,
Dave, did you go over the certificate mailings? I got interrupted.
I did not. That's a great point, Howard. We're gonna, I believe those are all ready, and we're gonna be mailing those out as soon as possible. One of the things that we've talked about with regard to the spring meetings is that I know traditionally we have paperwork that's handed out during that spring meeting. Again, embracing the 21st century, we're looking to provide those as electronic as possible. And so we will be mailing out those forms or emailing out those forms and having them available to everybody either on our website or via email, like I said. If there are situations that a paper copy is needed, we can easily mail that out. But we'll be mailing out those certificates hopefully this week, if not next week.
Thank you, David. Rod, you have any comments?
Yeah, just real quick. I think maybe Ron would agree with me, but something is, as your fair gets close and they get ready to inspect rides and inspect games, a lot of these inspectors will allow you to walk with them and learn, some of the rules and the things that you can kind of govern as the week goes on. I know I have for probably the last 10 years walked with our inspectors every time they go through our midway, to inspect, and it helps because then when I come down through those game, people know I know the rules. So if they're trying to change or do anything, it just might help you from having a problem. And other than that, again, I would like to back up what Paul says. Dave, we're just tickled pink for the efforts that you've started, and I think it's going to be a good partnership as we move forward. Thank you.
Questions?
If there are no questions, right, you got my contact information. And feel free, there's probably going to be a question out there that you think of in the next 25 minutes after we end this. So please reach out. The one thing I always like to say too, with regards to questions, is don't be afraid to ask it, because if you have a question, there's bound to be somebody else who has the same question. So take that step and give me a call. And if there's a question that if we get a question over the next day or weeks or months that we think is like, hey, that's a great one. What we'll do is we'll either, work with OFMA to provide that answer to the individual who asked that question, but also to OFMA so that they can disseminate that information to everybody. So looking as much as we can be on the same page as possible, the better. So.
Mr. Myron, I have a question.
Absolutely.
We are one of the this is Brad Cosenza. I'm the president of the Ross County Fair Board. We were one of the fairs lucky enough to receive some of that capital money, and we did send in our agreement. I just wonder what the process, you mentioned that the money will be distributed. Is there an application? We've received money from the OFCC before, and I'm a county administrator, so we deal with a lot of grants here. I just wonder what the process will be to get that money. Will we be submitting some kind of documents like we did for capital money in the past?
When you say are you talking about the $50,000 capital funds or the big project capital funds?
No, the biennium, the state capital budget money.
Okay, those will be those funds obviously need to be distributed still. We have not cleared. It's been appropriated to you through the capital bill. It's actually appropriated to ODA, and then ODA has to give it to you guys. And the way that we give out funds that are over $50,000, that has to go through that controlling board process unless it's an exception. And that's what we're trying to work out, whether or not we meet one of the exceptions. So once that's done, we will disperse the funds to you guys just as we've dispersed all of the funds. So it'll be a check either through EFT or a paper check at that point. After you receive the monies, you'll then use those to complete the capital project. And there are in that contract some reporting forms in terms of you will have to update ODA as to the completion of the project, the capital project. It's not that complicated, frankly, but it's all within that contract. I think it's a project completion form that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I know you talked, I know you had one slide up there, talked about the 15 and 50 and the reporting on that. I think there's some confusion out there from some that that's possibly a loan, that it needs to be repaid. Can you address that maybe?
Yes, I meant to talk about that, Paul. Thanks for reminding me. That is not a loan. That is money that is spent, that was delivered to the fairs. It does not have to be repaid to ODA. So to kill any of that confusion, it does not need to be repaid to ODA. It is not a loan.
Is there anything else, folks? We won't keep these guys any longer if there's nothing else coming in, but if you got some questions, we'll take them. Just a reminder, this slide deck will be on the OFMA webpage tomorrow. We'll also have the YouTube session up, or on the YouTube channel, we'll have the Zoom session up. So this contact information, any of those slide decks that went through that explain things, if you want to go back and research them, you can certainly access them. Promote it to your other board members that maybe didn't have time to get on this morning to go ahead and review that. Thanks again to Greater Ohio Showmen's Association and Lisco Amusements. And we got our wonderful government advantage lobbyist with us this morning, Amanda Sines, and Amanda has something to add. So go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk to everybody on this call and then also have David confirm this as well. There is a new bill making its way through the legislative process to distribute additional COVID relief dollars. And that includes $4.7 million for fairs and general revenue fund. So David, can you talk about that? Will that be distributed and have kind of the same protocols as the CARES funding, or will that be a little bit different? OFMA is planning on testifying on Senate Bill 109 today.
Yeah, so Amanda, thanks for that. And I would imagine that it would be distributed in the same way, but I have to do a deep dive on the bill itself. Haven't really had a chance to dive into that. I'm imagining based on the 4.7 million, that's the same amount of money for the previous funds, that it was probably the same way. But as you and I both know, things can change pretty quickly. So
yeah, there isn't any language in the bill. It really is just a line item for the fairs. So there isn't really any information on how it will be distributed. I mean, we're still going to support it and we still want it, but I just didn't know if you had any clarification on how that would be rolled out.
And there's no language in the uncodified section of the bill. Interesting. Okay, I'll work with Todd, our legislative staff, to figure out what's going on there. And we'll provide more details as the bill kind of moves along. But I'm assuming that it's going to be dispersed in the same or similar manner. But time will tell on that front.
Okay.
Just to follow up with what Amanda's talking about there with that capital money, she'd been hard at work. You guys all worked with us to get that financial report done that we asked for a couple weeks ago. It was very impressive when we got that information put together. Bev Fisher down at Canfield ran the economic impact report based on each county as well. So Amanda's been able to use those tools, and she's doing a lot of lobbying for us. OFMA has been working hard, and this money is going to be helpful again this year. You know, it's something we don't see 2 cycles back to back, but it's definitely going to be a plus. So it's hard to promise it at this point because it's not through, but it looks very positive that you're going to have some extra funding coming this year. David, we do have a question in the chat box. Did you see it down there? Could you address that?
So the question is, will all fairs receive junior fair funds even though no junior fair was held in 2020? So not necessarily. If you did not have a junior fair, the law does not allow us to give out junior fair premiums It's basically a reimbursement of the junior fair premiums that were issued in 2020. And so if there was not a junior fair held in your county, you will not be unfortunately receiving junior fair funds.
Thank you.
Yep.
Howard, do you have a spring meeting update? I think we're getting close to our spring meetings. Like I said, we're going to take a couple weeks off from the virtual programming, so we won't be meeting on a Tuesday. We'll pull one together real fast if we have to, but we'll go ahead and get that next round scheduled. But I think we've got spring meetings coming up here the end of March and beginning of April. So Howard, if you want to address those real quick.
Well, thanks, Paul. I can tell you, I'm excited to get back out on the road and to see all of you folks out there for the spring meetings. We will have the communication awards to hand out at the spring meetings. McKinsey, our 2020 queen, will be in attendance at all the meetings. And we have invited all the queens that registered for the queen contest to come to the respective district meetings and be introduced. You know, these young ladies have been kind of shortchanged by not being able to go to Columbus and go through the whole process there. And so we've tried to give them as much exposure, and that's why we've invited them to come along to the spring meeting, be introduced. And I think McKinsey's planning on probably holding a work session with these young ladies to prepare them for the Queen competition that Bev Fisher and the Queen Committee will prep out here after the spring meetings. But again, if you have not received your spring meeting notice, go ding your district director and get that invite. But we're excited to get out back on the road and to be out there to see all you folks, and looking forward to getting our fair season kicked off here in June. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Howard. David, one more quick item. I guess we didn't mention it this morning, and I don't see her on here, at least on my list. Obviously, some of us have shed the tear over Morgan's exiting down there. Maybe you want to address that, just so if anybody's used to dealing with her, they know how to handle where they're going. So
Absolutely. So as I'm sure many of you know, Morgan Lyles. Morgan has been with the department for several years now, done a tremendous amount of work with rides and the fairs program. She is leaving as of Friday. She is going back to private practice. It's allowing her and her family. She's got two twin girls that are 2 years old. A lot more flexibility in her life, which is as a father of one, I can understand and appreciate, let alone a father or a mother of two. So we all wish Morgan the best, obviously. In terms of future communications, I'm your man. So feel free to reach out to me. And if I don't know the answer, I know where to get it to. So let's talk.
thank you, David. Yeah, it's a sad day for OFMA and for affairs in industry with the loss of Morgan, but we certainly wish her well. She's been a huge help to us, so we certainly appreciate it. So, any more questions, folks? If there's nothing else, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here this morning. Anything? All right, I did have one comment from the gallery. I think, Conrad, this one was aimed at you. It said, next time you have to supply suckers for everybody. So you have to. You can't get off of mute to make a snappy comeback here. So
I don't deliver.
oh, all right.
You got to come to Medina. I'll give you a sucker.
All right.
Hey, I don't have any Mountain Dew in my hand.
Sounds like a challenge. So David, Ron, your crew this morning, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you guys out on the road this summer, and we'll get back to work. So
Absolutely.
Thanks, folks.